I almost feel guilty that I wasn't there too. But it was because
It's okay. No, well, see, that's interesting because here we go. Yeah, it's okay. This isn't the first time today we've cried. Yeah. So I too felt a lot of guilt because I wasn't able to be there for you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Spiraling Together, episode 9, Breaking the Stigma, Mental Health Truths from Our Healing Journey. So this week's episode is probably going to be a little bit deeper than we usually go. So that's kind of just a disclaimer for you guys. I know the last couple weeks were a little bit more fun-ish to talk about, but we still got a little deep. This one's probably going to be a little more intense, though.
Yeah, and it's something that we're both very passionate about. And just know that depending on where you are, if you are having any struggles right now with your mental health and you're at a really low place, this might not be the episode for you because it could potentially be triggering or confusing, just depending. I know for me personally, there's been times in my life when I have been really, really low, and I wouldn't have been open to hearing some of the things we might be talking about because they're not going to be what the conventional norms regarding mental health are. And we're going to discuss some of our personal experiences and the ways that we have overcome the struggles we've had with our mental health. Again, with non-conventional methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so even if you're seeking out more conventional methods, we're not saying that you're wrong either. These are just things that we've experienced.
There is nothing that we're going to talk about that has worked for us that is meant to shame where you are on your journey. So please know that we're just wanting to spread what has worked for us and what has brought us to a place now that I honestly never thought I would be able to experience in my life, a time that I am healthy with my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health, and that I see things completely different now.
Mm-hmm. And so the first thing we kind of want to touch on is just mental health in general. Why does it matter?
Yeah, it matters because it's kind of it's the driver, right? So in our society, we spend a lot of time in our minds. We really don't slow down very much and connect into our bodies. We are going constantly, achieving. We're on our phones a lot. We're stressing out about the future and maybe even being stuck in the past where the pain, the things that have happened to us in the past can hurt us. Mm-hmm. So the mental health portion is so important for us to be able to take a break from our minds constantly thinking and going future, past, and not really seeing what's going on in the present.
Mm-hmm. I know everything you're touching on right now. I feel like I was just going to bring up a book already.
Okay.
The 4 Agreements.
Oh, yes.
Who is the author?
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay, yeah. So our whole family listened to that book on Audible. And I do think, personally, I'm not in a really low mental health state right now. But I think if you are kind of down there in that area, or even if you're not, that is an insanely good book to listen to, because it really, I think the thing that I took away from it the most, of course, is the 4 agreements and bringing them into your life, but also the way that your mind is so powerful that you create your own heaven or hell.
Yes, absolutely.
And
with your thoughts.
Yeah, when you're not in a good place, if your mental is only thinking of that hell that you are in right now, you're going to stay there. There's no way out if you don't change your belief system in the moment and everything.
That's so true. And what I like that you brought up about a book is because we do have to pay attention to what it is we are also consuming. And that plays such a huge role. If all we're doing is watching movies and social media, and maybe they are disturbing in some way. I mean, the news is very disturbing. Social media can be very triggering. If that's all that you're consuming all the time, and you are seeing all of the destruction that's happening on the planet right now, or these debates and all of these things, you can get stuck there. But starting to put things in like books for personal growth or spiritual growth or anything else, good podcasts, that can start raising your awareness and change up, like you said, your belief systems. And it's important what we consume.
It really is, yeah. I mean, I remember even some things I would do, like you're saying about the news. Like, I remember I would see like some stuff on Instagram pop up about pages that only post good news. And it might just be like small things like, oh, this dog got adopted that was, living on the side of the road. It's even like little stuff like that. When you see that on your timeline pop up, it's like, oh, that's nice. Instead of whatever bad stuff is happening in the world. Of course, it's good to know what's going on, but getting a balance and getting that good stuff to make you feel good too is important.
Right, because there is both light and dark. Mm-hmm. And so we do definitely want to be able to consume things that bring in the light and still show the good that there is, because there are still really good human beings in this world. There are.
Yeah. And it's really hard to focus on the good when you're not good. So
that's true.
It's important to advocate for yourself, to know that you need some of that. You need to consume some of that. Keeps your faith going.
Exactly.
So I think we should dive in a little bit deeper about our personal stories, maybe when we weren't so good, like right now. Do you kind of want to start off?
Sure. How far back do you want me to start off?
I mean, whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Well, I'm completely comfortable with sharing this part of my story because I feel that it's one of the things that I was meant to share the most. So, first off, before I even start, I personally do not believe that everyone who struggles with their mental health has a mental illness. I believe that has been something that has been put on people to believe that they're broken or that something is wrong with them, they're not able to fix it. And I don't believe it's true. I think the most simplest way to understand when you're struggling with your mental health is that you've experienced trauma in your life. That is where it stems from. It's trauma. And trauma doesn't mean that it has to be an extreme trauma. Like, it doesn't mean that it has to be a train wreck or, a murder or death. It can be from the simplest trauma of just as you're growing up, the way that you're raised, even if something so simple as your mother needs to go take a shower when you're a little baby and puts you in the crib and goes to take a shower. And at that time you were cold, hungry, or thirsty and crying, and she just needed a shower, but you didn't feel that secure attachment from her. I mean, it can start as little as that. And then as we grow up, we can feel that, we weren't loved in the ways that we needed to be emotionally. So traumas don't have to necessarily be a major event. So I personally did have several major traumas that happened to me, so that it was pretty obvious why I started struggling with my mental health as a teenager. My father took his life. I lost my grandfather. I was sexually abused. Like, there were things that definitely happened that were, a trauma. So when I was a teenager, I didn't know that. I went to drugs and alcohol to try to numb out those feelings that I didn't understand that were going on. And I tried to take my own life when I was, the first time was like 13 and the second time was 15. And I overdosed on the prescription antidepressants I was on and was in a coma and wasn't supposed to make it through. And then, my parents didn't know any different, but to put me into psychiatric, treatment centers and go to a psychiatrist, go to a therapist, do talk therapy and take medications. And then it obviously never worked for me. And then I had several other bouts of depression as I was, getting older. And it wasn't until really the last time that I went down into that deep depression was in 2020. But that time it was different. Something just changed in me because I knew I didn't want to be on prescription medication. And there was just something inside of me that was like, you got to do something different. And so on the previous episode, we talked about psychedelics, and we talked about kind of my journey through ketamine and psilocybin and ayahuasca. And then also just truly realizing that I was in a state of hypervigilance or survival mode, and my nervous system was so unregulated from the career I was in, from not taking care of myself at all, from having a kind of a rough relationship with my husband. Because once you start struggling with your mental health, like you said earlier, it's like you struggle with everything.
You start spiraling.
You go
really
on the downward spiral. So that's just a little bit of what my journey has been through dealing with multiple episodes of being in depression, thinking that I was going to struggle with my mental health for the rest of my life. And I now know that that's not true. You don't have to struggle for your whole life.
So I guess like a question that comes up for me is, when do you realize like you're so far down? Because I've struggled with depression too, but when is the point for you, like when depression's at its worst, you have a hard time doing anything.
Right.
You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to brush your teeth. You don't want to shower. You don't care about anything. But when was the moment in 2020 that was like, I need to turn this around? Like, I do need to get up and I do need to get out of this. Because, I mean, we were both struggling at the same time. And, you were staying in a hotel a lot of the time. And I was back at home. And then we had Logan. Logan helped you a lot. I know that. And it's like, I almost feel guilty that I wasn't there too. But it was because... Uh-oh.
It's okay. No, well, see, that's interesting because here we go. Yeah, it's okay. This isn't the first time today we've cried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I too felt a lot of guilt because I wasn't able to be there for you. And I could see, this is the real raw spiraling together. Yeah. This is processing emotions. This is what it looks like to heal. Is allowing yourself to cry. And we haven't really had this conversation.
Yeah, we haven't.
So you're all being able to witness what healing is in real time. And tears are part of moving that energy out. And so it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'm not embarrassed. And I hope that you're not either.
I've already cried multiple times.
I know. Are we still in a Cancer moon right now? I think we are. You don't have to blame it on that. This is just real feelings coming up. So I also felt extreme guilt that I wasn't able to be there for you. I don't know if you had suicidal ideation during that time. I know that I did. And when I've been that low, my throat chakra's opening now. When I'm down that low, I can't see anything else.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that I can focus on except for that I can no longer function in this reality. And for me, it was, I was confused because we had everything. We had the beach house across the street from one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. We were making tons of money in our career. We had cars. We had everything that society promises you that will bring you happiness. And I was numb. It's the numbness that happens when nothing in life feels right anymore. And I know that 2020 shook us a lot because we didn't know what was going on. And then you're stuck with the people that you're living with. And then if there's any friction, or now I know that it's the nervous systems, if they're all unregulated, then everyone is triggering each other. And it just turns into this it's just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But Logan was there, and I'm so grateful that he was there. And I did, you're right. I stayed in a condo of a friend's because I had to get out of the environment that I was in to change things up and to solely focus on getting better. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, sweetheart.
Okay. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you.
It's okay. I definitely have never once thought that. I never once ever thought that you needed to be anywhere than where you were. So just know that.
Cool.
How did you come up out of that?
Well, I kind of brought this up on the last episode. But I was talking about smoking weed and how my days were just taken up by that. I would literally just wake up and smoke, and then if I wasn't high anymore, I would smoke again. And it would just be an ongoing thing. And then once, I'd started throwing up from it and greening out, the first time it happened, I was like, yikes. And then it was it happened the next day, and then it happened the next day, and then it just kept happening. And then I started realizing I was doing it to myself on purpose at that point. Because I was like, obviously, this is the new norm, and I'm not changing anything. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is bad. I don't want to do this to myself anymore. Because I just realized I was punishing myself. Mm. And I was like, I don't know why, really. Yeah, I'm really sad. But why? I don't know. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It was I'm just hurting myself physically now as well. and I didn't want it to get worse.
So you had the strength to have that realization and then stop it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would also say, like, you had Logan that was there to help you. I had, like, my best friend, Savannah, and she was with me through a lot of it.
By the way, Savannah, I love you, sweetheart, and you are one of our biggest supporters, and I always see that, and I'm just really grateful and thank you, because I don't think I realized that you were there for Chloe. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, are we crying again?
Crying.
Ooh, yeah. Here's the thing that is so important also to understand, that I think that we're missing sometimes in our society, is we need each other. We need relationships. We are relational beings. Yeah. And we have to have people to love on us and support us. And we're not meant to be independent. We're just not. If we were, then the moment we were birthed, we would be out running around and doing things on our own. But if you have a baby, what do they need? They need you to hold them and feed them and change them. And we are meant to be in community and with others. And I think one of the things that happened during 2020 was that we were cut off all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that was such a shock. And we didn't have the ability to hug each other. I mean, we were like behind masks, and we weren't able to see smiling, and we weren't able to just be with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's so important, especially when you do go down, that you have somebody. And I know that not everyone does, but please find like-minded people or a community, even if it's online, until you can be around others.
Right.
It's so important.
So important.
Yeah.
It really is.
I know that some of my very best friends now, I met them through all the struggles, and we're there to support each other. Mm-hmm. We Marco Polo each other, or we do whatever to talk and to be honest about the things that are really going on in our lives, and not just pretend that everything is okay all the time. Because you know what? It's not.
Yeah, definitely not.
We don't need toxic positivity. We need to have the vulnerable conversations. When someone asks that, everyone says, "How are you doing?" Don't just say good if you're not good.
Yeah.
Just be like, you know what? I'm going through some things right now. And hopefully the people that you talk to can hold the space for you and not try to make you feel that what you're going through isn't as big as what someone else is going through, or whatever.
That's a good thing to bring up, because I think a lot of the time when we do feel bad for ourselves, and then you'll like look at somebody else and you're like, oh, well, I don't have it as worse as them. So then you're like, yeah, why do I even feel like this? I've done that a lot.
Yeah. And that's a learned thing. And that's really bypassing your own pain. Mm-hmm. And so just know that every human being goes through struggles. And even if it doesn't seem like a lot, if you're feeling it, allow yourself to know that, and don't think that, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Mm-hmm. No, it's okay. Because when we tell ourselves that we're not worthy of feeling certain things, that's when that energy gets stuck inside of us again, or we come hardened off to it, our own humanity.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot to be a human.
It really is.
It is. It's a lot.
Aloha, listeners. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Spiraling Together. We're just taking a quick break to remind you about a few things.
If you're loving what you hear, we ask you to please follow, like, and subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us reach more people who might benefit from our conversations.
And we're on all the major social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Just search for Spiraling Together, and you'll see all our latest updates and behind-the-scenes content.
We absolutely love hearing from you. Your comments, likes, and shares mean the world to us. They not only motivate us to keep us going, but also helps us create better content for you.
So, if you have any feedback, questions, or topics you'd like us to cover, please leave us a comment or send us a message. We read every single one and appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you so much for supporting Spiraling Together. Your engagement and feedback are what keep us inspired and passionate about bringing you more vulnerable conversations.
Now, let's get back to the show.
I wanted to share a little bit about what I did, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, of course.
Just because, you said that you had the strength to have that realization that you needed to just stop the things. But let's say you can't. I know where I was, there was no way. I could see it, but I couldn't actually stop it. So I knew that I had to take different steps. So yes, I was so fortunate at the time that I was able to go stay at a good friend's condo. My son came to help me because I literally told him that I had suicidal ideation and I just needed someone to be around me. And he took me to appointments for the ketamine. And then there was something inside of me that was just like, start yoga. And I just was like, okay. We went and waited in the line in Waikiki outside of the Lululemon, and I got a yoga mat, and I just turned on YouTube, and I found Sarah Beth Yoga, and every day I did just like a 15 or 20 minute yoga. I started journaling. I started, Logan, we went and got beaky bikes and rode around, and I just really started focusing on taking care of myself and fighting for myself. And I did yoga every single day for 6 months. And what I later learned about what yoga does is that it actually helps move the energy through your body, but it also helps regulate your nervous system if you're someone that is not used to slowing down your mind. And then one of my friends told me about the school she was in, Sacred Path Healing School. And she was like, it might be something that you're interested in. And because I didn't want to get on prescription medications, I was like, I am so desperate to try anything. So I signed up for the course. And within 2 months, I had this awakening. The spiritual awakening that made me see all of the things that we deal with in humanity, all of the traumas that hurt us and keep us in this state of victim consciousness where we can't move out of that unless we start taking care of ourselves, unless we start realizing how much our past affects our present moment. And when we're stuck in that, we're not actually going to be able to thrive, that we're just trying to survive day to day. And we're not meant to live like animals. We have consciousness. Animals don't have that ability. So I didn't want to live anymore in a state of survival.
Yeah.
And I continue to do daily practices every day that keeps me in my body and not in my mind. And I notice that if I go into my mind too much, that is where I start feeling that stress, that anxiety, and then I'm like, okay, I know what to do now. Those practices.
Yeah. I think I'll share what I started to do as well. Because, I mean, it wasn't an overnight, like, oh, I got to stop doing this. Boom, I'm fine now. You know?
Okay.
I also did daily stuff, or at least, you know, tried my best to do stuff daily to get out of it. And since I was staying at the house, one of the things, because we also couldn't do anything because it was COVID, but I would just go outside and lay a towel out and lay on the grass just to get some vitamin D. I would put on my headphones and listen to good music, not sad music, because that keeps you down. And then I started reading books, which I had always like hated reading in school, and I would never read the books. I would just find the summaries and stuff like that online. But I remember specifically this one book. It's called Act Like a Lady by the Lady Gang. It's 3 women. I don't remember their names, but it was the first book that I fully read in like years. And it kind of just talked about each of their own lives and how different they were. And it was kind of like pushing that narrative in my head that like, you're not too old to start something new, which for me, I think that was the biggest problem that I was having, because I was just graduating high school, but then I was no longer going to college anymore. And that's something that society pushes on you that you have to do to be something. And so since I was not doing that anymore, I was, you know, feeling really bad for myself, and like my life is going to go nowhere now because I'm not doing what society says. So that kept me in like a box for a while, but I think that book really did help me. And another thing is like, I do think your parents can tell you stuff, and like they can support you through everything in your life. And like, you know, you telling me like, oh, it's fine, you know, there's still a part of you that's like, well, you're just my parent saying that, you know, like, of course I believe you and I trust what you're saying. But it does help when you find other sources as well telling you that, so that it doesn't just feel like, well, of course you think that I'm going to be okay, you know? So I would like finding other resources that reiterate those things to keep you going, you know? Not everybody's life is the same, and not what society tells you what to do has to be done to be a successful or happy person. So that book really helped me out a lot. And then I started working out again too. Like we said, like mental health is going to play a big part in the other health aspects of you, like physical health, spiritual, whatever kind of health you want. But yeah, those things were kind of the start for me. Was just like reading books again, going outside, finding good music,
taking care of yourself,
and
doing things
really
for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's important, and all that goes away when you get down there.
Yeah, it does. When you're down in the depths, you really truly don't. It's just like you're lost down there. Mm-hmm. You're just lost. You're stuck in a trauma loop is what it is. And you're stuck in... So there's different themes of consciousness that we can be in. And one of the... Dr. David Hawkins, I studied his work during Sacred Path. And the way he describes it is... depending on how you're feeling, like let's say you're in fear or judgment or guilt. Each of those themes actually have a certain frequency to them or a certain vibration. And so if you're down in that state of fear or judgment, guilt, anger, any of those things, that's all you're really going to see in your life. That's all that you're going to bring to you. And so just like you said, you create your own heaven or hell. If you're stuck in those loops or those themes of consciousness, you're going to be stuck in your own hell. So it's doing the practices that can help you raise your frequency or vibration to things like courage. Like, I have the courage now to take care of myself. I have the courage now to go out and get in the sun, do a yoga practice, a breathwork practice, reading, the courage to call a friend and see if we can get together because I need to have another person just to love on me. So that's another way that you can really bring yourself up, is by focusing on just taking care of yourself and knowing that if things just keep staying the same, you might be stuck in a certain theme of consciousness. One of my favorite books is The Inner Work by the yoga couple, Matt and Ash. They talk about these themes of consciousness in a much more in-depth and tangible way. But again, like I said at the beginning of this episode, you have to be in a place where you can receive all of this new information, because it is jarring if you've lived your life based on just the beliefs that the majority talks about.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to mental health. It opens a whole new world, and just make sure you're ready for that, because that in itself can bring on dark nights of the soul where you're like, whoa, what I thought was real my whole life is not really real. Mm-hmm. And that can be very scary too.
Definitely.
But once you can work through that and you can get to these higher frequencies, higher levels of consciousness, you can start experiencing joy. Like, I literally I was telling my husband before I had my awakening and did so much work, I didn't know what true joy felt like. I mean, of course, when you were born and when Logan was born, that was like those were the best moments of my life, bringing you both into this world. Here I go. And just feeling like, wow, that I remember just feeling like, wow. But then it was like, there wasn't a feeling of joy. Like, now I can wake up and I can be like excited about my life and excited about living, even with all the craziness that's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, I know what true joy feels like now. And I don't, crazy. Yeah.
Wild how new things can really open up your life.
Yeah. And there was something else I wanted to touch on during this episode, because we are going into things as far as mental health goes. I've expressed that for me, prescription antidepressants, I don't believe they work. There is a study now that shows that, I know that everyone has heard about that you have a chemical imbalance. They've now shown that that is not true. So there are new studies showing that that was a falsity. You don't have a chemical imbalance. You don't need to be on those medications to change the chemicals in your body. You're not imbalanced in that way. Mm-hmm. And there, Dr. Kendra, MD, she's on Instagram, Dr. Kelly Brogan. There are psychiatrists that are going against the norm. Mm-hmm. And showing people how that they can heal themselves. And even if you've been on prescription medications, how you can wean yourself off of them if it's something that isn't working for you. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, about the societal norm of just going to talk therapy. Again, when I talked about earlier, us being in our minds all the time, think about this. If all you're doing is talking about your problems and they're just recycling over and over again, you're not really dealing with the root cause of them. And you're actually perpetuating that same theme of consciousness with this talk therapy. And your therapist or your psychiatrist, if they're not giving you somatic practices to help you get in your body, they're helping you stay in your mind. They're telling you and giving you advice that they think maybe you should do with your life, when actually you have an internal guidance system and an intuition that can help guide you on the right path. And I'm not saying that all therapists or all psychiatrists are. It's just, for me, that is something that also never worked for me. It wasn't until I worked with energy healers and other types of work that helped me really, truly move the energy out of my body and get back into my body and back into my knowing that I'm more than just my mind.
Yeah. I kind of was going to touch on what you were talking about, talking about your problems over and over again. It's like that belief of talking things into fruition. So this isn't really off topic, but the example I'm going to use a little bit. Well, not really. Okay. It's like, I have this problem. Well, I do this a lot to myself. It's like something happens a lot, and I talk about it and I'm really scared that it's going to happen. Like, oh, I think I'm going to get sick. I'm like, oh, I started coughing. I think I'm going to get sick. And then the whole day I'm like, oh, I'm getting sick. I'm definitely getting sick right now. I'm going to get something. And then the next day it's like, oh, my throat hurts really bad. Okay, I'm definitely sick now. And then I just keep thinking that. And then the next day it's like fever.
And you created that.
Yeah. Because I feel like this also goes along with the 4 agreements, because it's really fresh in my mind. It's like I made that agreement with myself.
Yes.
And I've made this agreement with myself before, because I've said this multiple times on the podcast already. It's like I have an autoimmune disorder, so I have a weakened immune system. So anytime I have any symptom of getting sick, I'm like, oh, I'm sick. Like, yeah, it's gonna beat my immune system. But the last time that I was in Oahu, my boyfriend came and he got sick. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to get sick, because I'm in immediate contact with this person. And then he had a fever and everything. And I was like, there's no way I'm not going to get sick. But then I started turning it around in my head, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get sick. I'm going to be strong and I'm going to take care of him and all this stuff. And I didn't get sick, which is so unlikely of me, because just in my relationship with that person, I've gotten sick probably 5 times.
And so whenever you start talking to yourself, what is that theme of consciousness that you're coming from, the lower one?
Fear.
Right. So fear, that lower vibration, that lower frequency, you're speaking that spell over your body, and your body holds so much wisdom that you told your body it was getting sick. Mm-hmm. And then the last time, what did you do?
I just switched it. I caught myself getting scared. And I caught the fear coming up, and then I was like, you know what? No. Just tell it no. It's not going to happen again, because you can break those cycles that you create in your head.
Exactly. I mean, it seems so obvious, but we do go to the negative before the positive so many times. And think about just that simple switch. Mm-hmm. Change it around and see what happens.
Yeah. It's like
your thoughts create your reality. you can make yourself sick just by believing you're going to get sick, or you can.
Yeah. Or even if people tell you, like, you know, if you choose to eat McDonald's every once in a while and someone's like, oh, you're going to get fat, or, you know, this is going to happen to you because you're doing this, or you smoke or do something, you're going to get cancer. It's like sometimes when people plant that seed in your brain, you're like, oh, you're right. And then you just keep thinking it. And then sometimes it happens because that person put that seed in your mind, you let it grow by continuously thinking it.
And our society loves to do that on a large scale.
Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Yeah. Saying that you have a mental illness just because you might be currently going through a little bit more in your life.
Mm-hmm. Which, sorry. I don't
No, you're fine.
I think that is a huge thing that is going on, is people like posting symptoms about this and that. And like, you'll be scrolling on your page and you get something that's like, oh, do I have this and this disease or illness or whatever? And you're like, oh, I do that. Oh my gosh, I think I have this. Then you go on Google, and then you go on WebMD, and then you're stuck in this loop and you keep getting scared. This is another thing that happened to me with UTIs. I used to get UTIs all the time, just all the time. And I would get so scared that I was going to get them, because they do suck. If you're a woman, or, well, anybody,
yeah,
you know UTIs suck if you've had one before, and they can get really, really bad. I used to get them all the time. And then I just stopped thinking I was going to get UTIs. And, like, I haven't had a UTI in, like, 2 years.
Again, it's just being in the fear. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit, what you brought up for me, was I was recently listening to a podcast, the Higher Self podcast with Danny Morell, and he had a guest on, and they were also talking about mental health and all of these different symptoms that we have and all of these different diseases that we have in Western medicine, that, you know, everyone has a diagnosis for something. Bringing it to a real big truth is that it's really the separation that we have felt from our higher selves. It's a separation that has caused us to go into these beliefs that we are broken, or that something is innately wrong with us. And you're not broken. It doesn't matter what has happened to you in your life, the things that you have gone through, the things that you may have done. You're not broken, and you're worthy of feeling better, and you're worthy of taking care of yourself and coming back to the truth of who you really are. You're not just human, you're also divine, and you're sacred. And coming back to that connection is what's going to help you the most in your mental health journey.
And you have to trust yourself.
Yes.
With everything that begins to happen, even if the people that are in your life, you tell them stuff and they're like, ooh, that's weird. Or like, ooh, you sound kind of crazy.
Be the weird one. Yeah. Be the crazy one.
Be delusional.
It's okay. It's really okay. Be the black sheep or the rainbow sheep. I know I am. And I'm happy about it. Yeah. I am, because it's not just that you're going to save yourself, but who else can you impact?
Yeah.
Yeah. How else can we stop this generational trauma and breaking the stigma? So,
yeah.
I really enjoyed this episode with you.
Me too.
And thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for telling me how you feel, being open, to discussing topics that I know that can be hard and triggering. Yeah. And I don't know what our next episode is going to be. If you have anything that you want to hear us talk about, please let us know.
We would love ideas. We love hearing from you guys. I know that we've gotten a few private messages from friends or even from people we haven't talked to in so insanely long, but the kind words that you guys say, whether it's publicly or privately, mean the world and make us feel like we are making an impact. And even if it is for the couple of you guys that are here,
it's worth it.
It's so worth
it for us. I know that eventually this is going to unlock more service. I know for me, I definitely want to be in service in a even broader spectrum. But for now, this is where we're being guided, and I love it.
Me too.
It is a lot of work to put these episodes together and make the time, but it's worth it. It's worth it for the people that reach out and just let us know and say thank you. Or so let us know if there's anything you'd like us to discuss. If we've definitely experienced it in our journey, we will.
Yeah.
And thank you all for your love and support.
Yes, we appreciate it very much.
Yes. So just like we end every episode, don't judge her, just love her.